Hi, my name is Selvin, and you're listening to the Sangam podcast. I'd like to begin by acknowledging country. Today we are recording on Gadigal land. I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and thank them for sharing their knowledge on how to care for this country. In this episode, I'll be interviewing Araz. Hi, Araz.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure to have you here today. Please tell us about yourself. Let's talk about where you were born, how did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I am one of those true transnational kids. My parents are from Bangladesh, so let me start at the beginning. They moved to London in the early 70s.
Okay.
And then they had my sister, and then they decided to move to the Cayman Islands. But then I decided to get born, and so when my mom was expecting me, they went back to England for a bit, had me. So I was born in London.
Okay.
And then we went back to Cayman, where I lived until I was, I think, about 4.5 or so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. I've got lots of stories about running around and picking mangoes. And,
Yeah,
getting chased by bulls out of orchards.
fantastic. Well, that's amazing. It reminds me, and I kind of resonate a lot with my upbringing. I was born in Fiji, and when I hear the word Caribbean, I instantly think of Indo-Caribbean identities and in indenture and how diversity, skin color, all of that. You just look at a person and okay, there's this similarity. So where did you move after that?
So then after that, when I was about 5 or almost 5, that's when we moved to Canada, where I grew up for the rest most of the rest of my life. Yeah, we settled in Toronto, in the suburbs of Toronto.
Okay.
And then when I was in my mid-20s, I moved to Australia. So here I am.
Okay. And how long have you been here in Australia now?
I've been here for just over 7 years, I think about 7.5 years. So
that's very similar to me. I came here in September 2013.
Oh, wow, amazing. I came in August 2013. Yeah.
Okay, cool. In the past conversations that you and I have had, and we're going to tap into that a little bit more, let's talk about your identity and I want to give you this space to tell us.
Yeah. Identity-wise, okay, so I'm going to throw out all parts of identity aspect. So one identity is as a musician. Mm-hmm. One identity is as a sort of a writer and performance poet. Mm-hmm. One identity is youngest sibling. I think that's an important one. I'm also non-binary. I'm transmasculine. I am a management consultant, and I am going back to uni. I'm starting next week actually to start a master's of social work that I'm really excited about. So it's definitely a time of like all the different kinds of transition are happening for me. I've definitely felt in the past year or so that I've entered this kind of new way of being where I'm trying really hard to embrace my friends often make fun of me and call me the most Taurian of Tauruses that they know. And I think it's relevant in this context because I definitely am a sort of, I'm a pretty steady person, I think. And I've always just been myself. I've always kind of been, somewhat the same person moving through time and space. And I've had to accept in the past couple of years that it's actually exciting and fun to learn that you can surprise yourself and that you can learn new things about yourself.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I just hadn't really identified with that before. So now, as I've been moving through the medical part of my transition, so the social part of it started a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but the medical part is only in the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I've, just learning heaps about myself. It's been really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to exploring and listening to more of, your musical side. And, when I think about identity as well, when people ask me, so tell us about yourself, I think about these different files that I have to get out and talk about.
Yes.
Because there's so many different layers. Yeah. Araz, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about, so what is transmasculinity and what can you tell us more for people who are of the South Asian diaspora, I guess, when we know that there have been various identities and non-binary identities in the South Asian cultures and religions across Asia and, the diaspora.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But these conversations, and I guess, heteropatriarchy has a role to play in making sure that these conversations don't happen. And so, there are members of the community who don't know or don't have enough knowledge about non-binary identities. Can you explain a little bit more? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll just start by saying that, and I know you already know this, and I'm sure that most of the everyone that listens to this podcast already probably knows this, but one of the wonderful things about trans identities, non-binary identities, gender non-conforming identities is that there's just so much beautiful variety,
Yeah.
within those of us who choose who identify as such. So I'll tell you a little bit, I guess, about what being non-binary or transmasculine means to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where to begin? So one thing that I always remember when I talk about this kind of stuff is being a sort of 4-year-old, or around 4-year-old, three or four, when I was still in the Cayman Islands. And I remember telling people when I started pre-kindergarten, junior kindergarten, that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. And I remember the adults being kind of confused and going, "Oh no, ha 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 ha, you're a girl." like you don't know what you're talking about. But the kids, I remember always just kind of getting it, in that sort of way that that's sometimes very young children can, where they just sort of intuitively feel who you are, what you are, and it's not that confusing to them. So I remember that very well at this very young age of knowing exactly who I was. And then as I got a little bit older, when I was sort of in grade school, I remember that switching a tiny bit and saying I am a boy and I am a girl, which is two sort of versions of the same thing.
Yeah.
But then I'm not exactly sure when or why. But when I think about the sort of later elementary school years and definitely high school years and all that, those conversations and that way of identifying with myself just kind of seem to vanish a bit. So I think I must have repressed it. I must have at some point realized that life was going to be a lot easier for me if I didn't.
Okay.
And so I just kind of assumed, I must be a queer woman, because I'd always liked girls, and it was so much easier for me to sort of fall in line with that identity, I guess, really, than it was. Plus, as probably a lot of members of our communities know or have experienced, there aren't a lot of role models for this type of thing, right? So I didn't know any brown trans guys. I didn't know any non-white, even like sort of queerly gendered people,
Yeah.
So I had no one I grew up in a very white suburb of Toronto,
Right.
and forget even race and that kind of thing. Like, I just didn't actually know any trans people and very, very few queer people.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that it was an option for me even to be who I knew I was. And so I'm giving you the whole journey.
It's fantastic. A lot of it is, I can see some of the things in my life too. When I came out as bisexual to an aunt, and it was the first person from the older generation who had ever told.
Yes.
My aunt told me that you can't be bisexual. You have to decide whether
Yes.
on either. And it was such a
Yeah.
difficult. It was such a difficult. So I thought, I guess for you, when you said that you decided to not talk about certain things and just go with whatever was easier, I went with whatever was easier. So I said, I'm gay.
Yes.
I'm still discovering my sexuality.
Yeah.
And there are days when I feel that I'm not completely gay, or I'm not sitting on one side of the spectrum.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're right. Like, society makes you go into a space where you have to say, I am this, or I am that.
Absolutely. So I sort of realized, if you will, or came back into my own knowledge around age 30, and that was when I had been in a long-term partnership. I call her my ex-wife, even though we weren't legally married, because marriage equality hadn't come through yet here.
Okay.
So I'd been with my ex-wife for a number of years since I was very young, and when that relationship dissolved, for some reason, so of course, it was devastating, blah, blah, all that stuff, but it also sparked this real gender euphoria, kind of moment for me. And I'm not sure why, but it was as though having this huge, architectural element of my life, this narrative, I thought I would be with this person forever and blah, blah. When that changed, it kind of freed me to realize that many of the other big architectural narratives in my life also did not need to keep perpetuating them. So for some reason, when I recall that period of time, so this is about 5 years ago now, I just remember this new sense of awareness flooding into my life, and it was actually quite overwhelming, and I struggled with it a bit because it seemed so like relentless of just, oh my god, I think I'm trans, you know, and it almost felt like a surprise because I had lost touch with that part of myself from when I was a kid.
When you were you did say that you suppressed a lot of this, so you're talking about going into that space where you that moment happened. I want to know more about
like it's so wild to think about it now. So I have a lot of empathy and a lot of care and affection for all of the versions of my old self, all the versions of myself, really. They're not old, like I believe that all of who we are exists in, some sort of relative space-time
Wow.
continuum, and so I think my 4-year-old self is sitting here right now. I think my 12-year-old self is sitting here. I don't like to, like, I use they them pronouns for those people as well, because
Yeah.
I think that it's easier for me to keep a sense of unity, but I don't regret those people who have existed, those versions of self. I
Wow.
think so much good has, like, so much richness came out of my life for being socialized as female. And
Yeah.
even though, yes, of course, there are certain pain points and certain aspects of why, sometimes I think if I transitioned earlier, physically, medically especially, like, it would have probably helped me in a number of ways. But I'm also so grateful that I was, raised, socialized female, because I got to access these, wonderful parts of community and things that, it's hopefully this will change as we evolve as a society, but certain spheres of social comfort and community that femme people or girls and women, like, just get to inhabit in a simpler way, than masked people do. And obviously that has a lot to do with toxic masculinity, but it's, for whatever reasons that it occurs, it's damaging to everyone, and so I think if I'd been raised as a boy, of course there are parts of that would have been freeing, and I would have definitely been more present in my body and wouldn't have had such dissociative issues as I experienced when I was, like, a teen and in my early 20s and stuff. So all of this is to say that I think of my coming into myself gender-wise not as a coming out, but as a coming home, because that self was always there. It was just sort of, oh, I didn't realize that, little things like dissociative moments, or, not quite understanding why I couldn't be present and, enjoy the intimate aspects of relationships as much as I wanted to sometimes. Things like that, all these layers to it, realizing now that, oh, that is actually gender dysphoria. That's what that was. It's not that I didn't care, it's not that I did, all of these things that at the time, if you don't know other trans or, gender nonconforming or gender creative people, you don't even know that there might be a reason for why you're experiencing these to me it felt like sometimes there was just a remove from immediate involvement in my own life, immediate experience of my own life. Since I started socially transitioning, and then especially now since I've been taking testosterone, I'm taking low dose gel testosterone, so it's a choice that I made. I've been taking it for about 8 or 9 months now, and I really wanted to do it in a method that for me personally felt slow and steady, and where I felt that there was room for, like, changes of dosage and nuance, in order to, so I'm saying this as opposed to going straight into a regular injection. For me, it was important that I wanted to stay true to what, at least right now, I'm experiencing as a non-binary and transmasc self, versus capitulating, like you were saying, to the kind of social, society tries to sometimes make us go one way or the other. And even sometimes, I think, maybe not always consciously, but even within trans communities, sometimes there can be a little bit of a bit of a silent pressure to reflect transness in a way that is more uniform with other trans guy experiences. And I don't think people sit around going, oh, I'm gonna, try to make that non-binary person be more binary. But I think that there can sometimes be anxiety that if we are not all, aiming for the same goals or aiming to represent in the same ways, that we'll somehow dilute the narrative or something, and I just don't really have time for that at all.
That is beautiful. Listening to you, there is so much power and so much balance. I really admire that.
Thank you.
To me, I think, capturing these ideas and being able to understand that this is how I exist, and you're putting it into words, and, I find that very powerful.
Thank you.
Thanks for
really
sharing
nice.
that with us.
Yeah, thank you. It feels really right to be to be where I am on this journey right now. So I also just had top surgery, like, I think today's about 10 weeks ago, something like that. Yeah. Okay. I can't believe that. Yeah, it's already been 10 weeks. And it feels amazing. And this is one small thing that I kind of do think sometimes, oh, maybe I should have done this bit sooner, because it's brought me such intense relief and such intense joy. At the same time, like, I'm 34 34. Yeah, 34. I'm 34, turning
Yeah.
35. And yes, sometimes I wish I'd done it sooner, but also it feels like exactly the right time. Like now I have the social supports that I need. You
Yeah.
know, my family is now on board and we're very open about stuff. My mom is very supportive. She sent me, money for surgery and all this like wonderful.
That is great.
Yeah, all these really, lovely gestures of support. So I think when to hear you say, that it sounds powerful, I'm so pleased, and I'm so pleased to hear that, because it reflects back to me that sometimes even when you go through long periods of discomfort, when things come together at the right time, you can find a way to make something beautiful out of all of that suffering.
And often when you don't hear somebody else tell you that this is the impact that your story has, you think that, like when I came out talking about my experiences, and people would message me from Malaysia, from India, and say, we're looking at you, and it's so much, it gives us so much strength.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, like same for you. I mean, I'm listening to you, and we've had brief conversations before, and you've talked a little bit about service and support, and I want to go into that space too. And I know that you want to talk about that as well, coming into Australia and, accessing medical facilities.
Yes,
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that has been one of the hardest pieces of this puzzle. If you're, like somebody who's looking up information about how to start transitioning or how to start affirming your gender identity through the medical system in Australia, there's little to no information out there, from my experience at least, for what that looks like for non-residents. For migrants and for people who don't have permanent residency.
Right.
So for anyone on a temporary resident visa, I've been on a whole slew of visa types in my time here. And yeah, that was really hard. I came against quite a few walls that I don't think need to exist. And I think it's just, it's really unfortunate that there isn't more support. So it's not just the money part of things. It's actually that changing your gender marker through Medicare. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've kind of existed for longer than I had to in a state of not affirming myself because of that. And it feels very arbitrary, and it feels really unfortunate. Right now, I haven't been able to change my my old name. So legally, I still am known as my former name. And I don't really feel confident that I will be able to change that soon until I get permanent residency, because I'd have to change my birth certificate in England, and then that would have to trigger a new passport from Canada, which would then, the bit that is insecure for me is around if once I have that new passport and new gender marker, so I would probably get an X for my gender. So there's the third choice on my Canadian passport. What would that mean when I then try to transfer my current student visa, which is associated with my old passport, to this new name and to this new gender and blah, blah, blah. It's very possible that, I hope someone out there listening to this is going to be some sort of, fantastic immigration lawyer and is going to contact me and say, it's not that hard. It's okay. Just do it, And maybe it's me, maybe it is actually just that complex. But to me, that feels like that's probably one of the biggest remaining anxiety blocks that I have. And I think I've worked through most of them. But that piece really freaks me out, because what I don't want is to end up in a accidental position of having broken visa,
and breached
because as we know, this, unfortunately, this administration is quite strict and punitive about breaks in visa and that sort of thing. So I need to be really careful about that. Yeah, and even just I guess, what it would mean to be a temporary visa holder while navigating all of these very tender, very deep and big issues around transition. Like, it's just not really talked about, and that's a space that I'm hoping to be able to become more active in. And part of the reason why I'm doing this master's of social work and changing careers essentially is because I think that is just that is a huge bucket of people that is not really getting to access care that is meaningful. Like when I did access, trans groups or counselors that were experienced at working with trans issues, none of them had the additional intersectional, lens. Understanding of also working with someone with a state of immigration precarity, and to not understand how those two play off of each other is a real lack.
So I'm hoping people who are listening out there, if you're working in this sector, that you can, your story hopefully gets to them, and they understand that, having this added layer of stress and pressure and all these problems that are around it. A lot of things have come up from this conversation, and I'm hoping that we can talk or have another maybe podcast and talk more about it. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about specifically?
I guess I want to also just spend a little bit of time talking about the wonderful parts, the joyful parts of yeah, you know, of everything that I've been sort of pushing my way through in the past little while. And I don't know, I don't want to get too, you know, it gets better about this, but yeah, I guess but I do want to say though, because I recently, especially during this pandemic and during all of the you know, enforced isolation that has happened as a result, there really has been a lot of vulnerability and a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of suffering and loss within trans and queer communities. And I want to acknowledge that I think that witnessing some of the hardships that queer and trans people have been experiencing through this pandemic has made me feel even more grateful for how happy I am to be in my cute little chest now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like
I
how,
remember that day on Instagram.
yeah.
Like, and I was
So good.
telling you that
Yeah.
it's great, fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
It's amazing. I walk around with my shirt off all the time now
Yeah.
in my house, and both of my nipples are still attached to my body, which is fantastic
Yeah.
news.
That's great.
Yeah, if people want to, contact me to ask me things about that stuff, I'm pretty open book about it.
Yeah, and if they want to contact you, Araz, what's your where do they contact you? Instagram?
That's such a good question. I'm not as active on socials now as I used to be, but Instagram is the best way. Yeah, I think I'm Zbot11.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And I'll tag you
Yeah.
your Instagram handle to the podcast
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
I need to up my game on that stuff. So I'm gonna eventually create a separate music account and all that. But I've been enjoying kind of yes, not being active. I guess I want to affirm for people listening who maybe aren't sure if they're ever going to be able to, if they're going to be okay if they come out around gender nonconformity or gender creativity. Obviously, I'm not trying to diminish the fact that it might make things hard. It might make things hard in your life with some people. It might make safety an issue sometimes. I also want to counterbalance all of that by saying, like, there are places for you to exist as your whole self, and there are places for you to be loved for everything that you are. And I, during this time of increased vulnerability and increased precarity for so many people, I hope that people listening to this will choose to keep pushing and to keep sticking around with us.
That's beautiful. Wow. Is there any advice for the community who aren't queer, who have maybe limited knowledge? I guess for them too, it might be a little bit of a journey. I guess the social conditioning is there, and to unlearn that.
Of course.
What are some of the things that you can say to these people?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think I'm going to be quite practical about it. Quite nuts and bolts, because that's how my family operates. So I would say that if you can, try to think of this as, you don't need to understand everything that someone is telling you in order to respect them and love them. You don't have to understand them all the time. You don't have to agree with them all the time. But what you do have a choice about is whether or not to support and respect your family member or your community member, because they're going to be copying lots of annoying stuff or possible unsafety and things like that from other people out in the world. Why should they also have to cop it from you? I think that
it's really hard when it comes from people that you love.
It's even harder. That's from my experience and from some of the people that I care about and know, that has been sometimes the source of the deepest traumas, right? So there can be more dramatic and more, in some ways harmful incidents can occur with other people from the outside population, but when they come from close to you, the smallest things are sometimes what causes the most deep trauma and the deepest attachment wounds and that sort of thing. I wish and I hope that more, especially elders in our communities, I hope that they can try to move away from this idea that they need to intellectually understand, or that they need to, always use the right language and all that kind of stuff. It's not so much about that. It's about, will you stick up for your family? That's how I see it. And once hopefully you can get your heads around that, then I think the rest of it comes a lot more easily. The big things for me, if you could do 3 things, I think would be, again, not worrying about whether you agree with it or whether you understand it. If someone tells you their pronoun, just do it. Just do it, you know? And yes, you're going to make mistakes. That's completely fine. But don't allow your fear of making a mistake or your fear of saying the wrong thing make you not try at all.
Yeah.
Because when, like, I can say for myself personally, to hear my mother for the first time, you know, this was maybe, I think about 2 years ago, for the first time I heard her call me Araz in a store where we were shopping together, you know. So she just yelled out, and she was at the cash register, and, you know, a typical, you know, I was 32 at the time, doesn't matter, she's calling me to say, do you want some candy or something from the, you know, I'm at the cash, right? And I'm just loafing on the side, you know, trying to avoid looking like I'm shopping with my mother. And so to hear her just call out, yeah, Araz, you know, was so to use the right names, to use the right pronouns. Every time a family member makes those small gestures, you absolutely make a person's day. Or that could be the thing that saves, I'm sorry to be too dark about it, but that could be the thing that saves someone from self-harming. Is those little things, you know, like hearing my mother use my pronoun. My unfortunately, my father passed away right as I was transitioning, and that was really painful. But it was also kind of it was quite a beautiful moment the way that it happened. When I went back to Canada, this was just over 2 years ago, while he was dying in hospital. It was the beginning of this journey, the medical part of it for me, but it was also the beginning of my family really being on board. And him being in the hospital, the week before he died, he started to try to use my name, and he started to, you know, tell the nurses, and he was on, you know, medications and all that, obviously painkillers, so he would sometimes forget things, but when he was with it again, he was trying. Wow. And that was just such a gift to give to me. And it also set the tone for a lot of my family, because they saw, you know, my relatives, they saw in his last few days, my uncles and aunts, and all of these extended family, some of which who were quite Islamic and quite religious. They saw, oh, he's calling them this, you know, and he's trying. Well,
and I think that's so true. When parents in the South Asian community, when they accept, the rest of the community just understands that, you know, this family is together and they're strong.
Yeah. I've had, you know, as I'm sure most of us have had, a very painful conflict with my family growing up around this kind of thing. And actually not so much this thing. They were much worse when they thought that I was a queer woman. They're actually relieved now that maybe they'll get in a weird way, maybe they'll get what they would call a straight son out of it, you know, like what a funny turn of events for them. They're celebrating now. So we've had so much conflict, so much pain, and years of not having very much contact between each other. And what I also want to say is that they have surprised me, and I'm not saying that, you know, obviously there are really toxic situations out there where it is best sometimes for young people or adults with toxic families to not maintain contact. And I support that where that's needed. I also want to say I did have that toxic, unhealthy, painful family situation for a number of years. I did take the space that I needed. And also we have changed, and we have talked and worked on it. And for me personally, that was also possible. And if you had told me 15 years ago that would have been possible, I would have said, no, you're crazy. There's no way. So, you know, take that how you will. For what it's worth, prolonged effort has worked for me.
No, it's I can see myself there too. Like, you know, for me, when my journey started as a gay man, my parents weren't always on board. I'm really happy to hear that, you know, this is a good space that you're in, and that your family have come around.
Thank you.
And, you know, thanks for sharing with us this really empowering journey.
My mum is going to listen to this and cry her face off.
I mean, this is, and some of the, like, when you finish, and I'm just like, there's so much emotion, and it's, you know, the way you speak and talk about it, there's so much poetry in it. And I can see that there is a huge journey behind it, which is why you're able to express yourself the way you are today.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but it's been the best work of my life.
You know, this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I hope that by listening to some of these thoughts, and by listening to the rest of the episodes as well of the podcasts that are available, I hope that people will, understand that they're not alone. Really, that's all I'm in this for.
Great. And I just want to ask one last thing. So, Araz, we've talked a tiny bit about pronouns there.
Yes.
So if people did reach out to you, what are your pronouns? Do you want to tell them?
My pronouns are they, them. I'm non-binary. I'm transmasc. It's kind of funny because now I'm starting to get heed out in, like, socially, like, which is so weird. When people ask me my gender, I often just say, like, gentle noodle, because I feel like that's like the most apt. Like, I'm a chewy udon in a broth with maybe some greens, like that. That is my
imagine.
gender. Yeah, it's
And if people do misgender you,
yeah,
Aras,
yeah.
what do you do then?
It depends so much on the context. I'm pretty good now at just. It doesn't really faze me anymore to look at people and just go, oh, cool, thanks for talking to me, but actually, like, this is the this is the deal,
Yeah.
And when people misgender me, 9 out of 10 times I'll say something, and they might get it, they might not. 1 out of 10 times I'll decide that it's unsafe or it's not worth it. This is someone who might just come back at me with a bunch of BS about, like, what does this mean and blah, blah, blah. I'm actively trying to reduce the amount of BS like that in my life because it just sucks too much out of me. And I've spent a lot of time working advocacy around this kind of stuff. And I have decided that it's fine if I don't want to engage all the time. Yeah.
No, that's completely fine. And I think it's really important that you've said that, to understand if it's a safe situation or not.
Yes.
Advocacy is important, but looking after ourselves is
Absolutely.
important too.
And like understanding the way that testosterone changes the way you experience the world is also a really important part of that, because I don't want to perpetuate, myths about testosterone makes you a monster and all this kind of stuff, because I don't agree with that at all. But I do notice a change. It's very important, I think, to have that sort of psychoeducational learning or community to access learning from around what changes are going to feel like while you are medically transitioning, because it helps me. So I have a few different Facebook communities and stuff like that, groups that I'm a part of where, it's a bunch of trans guys and we all talk about different things on there. And that has helped me so much because it's given me like, so the, doctors, I have great GPs and stuff and a great therapist. They can help you with some aspects of things, but they can't really help you with how is this actually going to feel, and what am I, like, when is my skin going to stop breaking out? Like, when is, did your underarm start to smell really weird afterwards? Do you get itchy because new hair follicles are growing on your back? Like all this like weird stuff, that like nobody, and
but that's a really good space to have this conversation.
Definitely,
the community, like in our community is pretty strong.
Yes.
When I reached out to you, we had a great chat. And just this morning, I was talking to somebody around GPs who understand that there is that intersectional layer of being South Asian and being queer. And often queer people do not, come out to their doctors saying that I am queer because of the fear that they'll be judged. I would love to know who your doctor is. Maybe we can talk about it later,
absolutely. But for people who are looking for information on this kind of stuff, check out TransHub if you aren't already aware of it. TransHub is an amazing resource, and it's got lots of information on how to access all different types of care, both in the medical sense and the non-medical sense. And I mean, I want to say, in case it's not clear, that I'm not trying to say that, medical transition somehow defines a person's transness or defines their gender. It obviously does not. TransHub, check it out. Also, OzPath, if you're looking for.
Just Google this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is that a big part of why I wanted to do this interview is because when I started taking tea, I was looking up, as you do, all of the different YouTube videos. There's like so many videos of these cute people, showing like 1 month on testosterone, 3 months in. And like, so I was like watching heaps and heaps and heaps of videos, and like not a single one of them was a brown guy. Not a single one. I looked like literally like for just months, I would constantly looking, like I'd find like once in a while there'd be like, some like beautiful black person like on an American video or something, and I'd be like, yes, like like that's one non-white body on this, but and it was not just because I wanted to see someone who I could identify with in that way, but because different people's complexions and stuff, like different skin and different hair, like they will experience obviously hormones differently, so it's like I wanted to see what it would look like for me more, and that I haven't found very many of those. So I have a very like super basic little YouTube channel of my own now. And if people have questions about specific things that they want me to speak about, then you can just drop it onto the YouTube in the comments or something of a video, and I'll try to respond to that there.
Great.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I've loved listening to Araz talk about their story. Now we'll be listening to them sing. So let's hear it from Araz.
Who could have guessed the better or the best of us is traveling in you?
farther away from the source of truth. That was anywhere else but wherever, anywhere else but forever, always out there, always out there. It took a great deal to get the stories out, and even when we did, they were so stitched upwards like elongated. And I was propelled, and how tall were the trees, and how deep was the well? I remember the dream body, both me and my eternal landscape. Every fur and every cone, and each embrace and each sad stone that built atop itself and over so many nights' work. You slept and I prayed for answers. Take me with you, you begged in your sleep. Words aloud, words inside, I counted them where they overlapped. Like resurrected monuments, each call, each lament, testament to some older self, enduring and obliterated. I remember the dream body, both me and my eternal landscape. Every fur and every cone, and each embrace and each sad stone that built upon itself and over so many nights' work. Shatter and shard and displaced and disbarred, so hard to remember you in any other way. How difficult you were to like, how loving you was like getting up so fucking early and just to watch the sunrise. Or to take a budget flight to somewhere great. Or to take a budget flight to somewhere great. I remember the dream body, both me and my eternal landscape. Every fur and every cone, and each embrace and each sad stone built upon itself and over so many nights' work. Much longed for a little longer with you on planes and trains and buses, waiting for things to improve. Body and profile, the voice long unused breaks the fondness and regret. I missed you. Body and profile, the voice long unused breaks of fondness and regret. I missed you. The body and profile, voice long unused breaks with fondness and regret. I missed you, I missed you.
You were listening to the Sangam podcast. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is Selvin signing out. Thanks. Bye.
Hi everyone, this is Araz Ahmed again. I just wanted to add a little note at the end of this interview. For those of you listening, we recorded the initial interview that you've just listened to and the song quite a few months ago. So it would have been, I think, around February. And now we are at the end of June. So I wanted to just let you hear what 6 months on testosterone has done with my voice. I'm feeling really nice about it. Happy about how sort of slow and steady my changes have been. But in the past month, I'd say that things are starting to break through a little bit more, and I'm getting heed a lot in public. It's been really nice not to get misgendered the other way. So we're all working within imperfect systems, and it would be nice to have more subtlety and nuance in the everyday, but being heed is less incorrect. So I will go with it. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I just wanted to give you a really quick update. The social work study is going really well. I'm enjoying it. I'm working with international students onshore in Australia at the moment, and working to help coordinate some peer support groups, and doing some anti-racism ally training and coordination as well. So all of that is going really good. And I also wanted to share with you, if you wanted to check out more of my music, you can do. I realized that I had forgotten to give you the link on the interview. So it's Araz Demha Music at bandcamp.com. So ARAZDEMHA music at bandcamp.com. Right now we're in lockdown again, unfortunately, so we were supposed to start recording my new EP project around now, but that's gotten delayed a little bit. So hopefully by the end of the year there'll be a new little album up of me singing with my new cute voice. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Bye everyone.